Welcome to A Century of Cinema. Today I will be exploring my favourite films of 1946. First up is A Stolen Life, produced by and starring Bette Davis, who plays two roles as twin sisters Kate and Pat Bosworth. Kate meets Bill Emerson, played by Glenn Ford, who gives her a lift in his boat to an island where her cousin Freddie lives. Kate and Bill take a shine to each other very quickly, and they get closer when Kate paints a portrait of crotchety lighthouse keeper Eben, Walter Brennan, since Bill also works at the lighthouse. They start seeing each other, and that's when Kate's twin sister Pat is revealed. Unfortunately, after meeting him, Pat also has designs on Bill, and Bill finds Pat more exciting than Kate. Bill and Pat soon marry, and Kate leaves for New York, where she meets a bitter struggling artist named Carnock, Dane Clark. An antagonistic romance begins to blossom between them. But then, when Pat dies in a boat accident with Kate, Kate is mistaken for Pat and attempts to pose as her. There are two main draws about A Stolen Life for me. Number one, the seamless effects when the two Bettys share the screen. We take that kind of thing for granted these days, but in 1946, it would have been quite impressive. It was actually nominated for the Best Visual Effects Oscar. And for comparison, a few months later, Betty's friend Olivia de Havilland would play identical twins in The Dark Mirror, which was done well, but not quite at the standard of A Stolen Life. And of course, the real highlight is Bette Davis's brilliant, nuanced performances as Kate and Pat. The distinctions between them are always readily apparent, but never over the top. Kate is just sweet and shy, and Pat is essentially cheeky and selfish. Kate is the protagonist and the lead role, while Pat is basically supporting part. So it would be reasonable to give Best Actress and Best Supporting Actress of 1946 to Bette Davis.
You've never known anybody like him before. When Bill's kind fall in love, they mean it.
Katie, I know the kind of person Bill is. And I am mad about him. You must believe me.
Frank Capra's It's a Wonderful Life, the Christmas standard that also happens to be an excellent movie. There's not a lot of point to getting into the plot, because I'd be surprised if anyone out there hasn't seen it at least once. But basically, all-around good guy George Bailey, James Stewart in another iconic performance, longs to get out of his quaint little town of Bedford Falls and see the world. But life keeps throwing obstacles in his path, mostly revolving around the family business, a little savings and loan that is committed to looking out for the little guy. Things get so bad that he's about to jump off a bridge when an angel, second class, no wings yet, named Clarence, an extremely lovable Henry Travers, shows him what Bedford Falls would have been like if he was never born. Based on Philip Van Doren Stern's short story The Greatest Gift, It's a Wonderful Life was surprisingly not all that popular in its day, losing the studio over $500,000, despite getting 5 Oscar nominations, including Best Actor, Director, and Picture. In fact, the main reason it became the beloved classic that it is was because the copyright lapsed in 1974 and TV stations needed cheap programming for Christmas. But the fact is, it's just a really good movie. One of Jimmy Stewart and Frank Capra's absolute best, with a funny and heartbreaking screenplay by Francis Goodrich and Albert Hackett. Apparently Capra chipped in a bit too. And some top-notch supporting work from Travers Clarence, Lionel Barrymore as the evil banker Mr. Potter, Donna Reed as George's wife Mary, Gloria Grahame as the bombshell Violet, and particularly Thomas Mitchell as the hopelessly forgetful Uncle Billy. And despite his long list of excellent character roles, this has to be my favourite. It's a Wonderful Life is often imitated but never equalled, and Jimmy Stewart uses every arrow in his quiver as George. But for me, it's the end of his rope, desperate and suicidal George that elevates the work. He's not just depressed, he's miserable, furious, and terrified all at the same time, and it feels absolutely authentic. That's why he's my choice for Best Actor of 1946. Next, it's Orson Welles' The Stranger. It stars Edward G. Robinson as Nazi hunter Mr. Wilson, who comes to the small town of Harper in search of one of the architects of the Holocaust, Franz Kindler, who is posing as a teacher named Charles Rankin, and he is played by Wells himself. Wilson has come to Harper following a Nazi soldier named Meinecke, who he believes to be the only living person who can recognize Kindler. Meinecke and Kindler meet, and the reformed Meinecke tries to convince the hardliner Nazi Kindler to repent. Instead, Kindler kills him. The remainder of the film consists of Wilson trying to prove that Rankin is indeed Franz Kindler. Orson Welles had already proved that he was a visionary and talented director, but with The Stranger, he showed that he can also excel at making an exciting noir thriller, on time and on budget. And it is one of the best of the genre. He doesn't hold back on his artistry, but he doesn't overindulge either. There are a few long takes which are so natural and well composed that you barely notice the lack of cuts. And he's aided by some excellent and somewhat unsung cinematography from Russell Meddy. In fact, the entire look of the film is subtly spectacular. And the screenplay, from Victor Trevis's Oscar-nominated Screen Story by Anthony Vayler and Declan Dunning, with a bit of help from Wells and John Huston, is tight and clever, with some great veiled animosity between Wilson and Kindler. Also, The Stranger has a scene which shows some Holocaust footage, apparently one of Wells' contributions, giving the film an extra dose of poignancy, authenticity, and importance. It was actually the first commercial American film to show footage from the concentration camps. It is a confronting series of images, and somewhat jarring in what has up to that point been essentially standard noir fare. Orson Welles gives an excellent performance as a thoroughly despicable man, but it is as a director where he really shines, and The Stranger is a perfect example of that. That's why he's my choice for Best Director of 1946. Finally, it's The Big Sleep, based on Raymond Chandler's novel and directed by Howard Hawks. In Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall's second film together, Bogart plays P.I. Philip Marlowe, who is hired by wealthy General Sternwood to get his wild child daughter Carmen, Martha Vickers, out of trouble. Bacall plays Carmen's older sister Vivian, who inserts herself into the investigation, pumping Marlowe for information, all while trying to keep her own secrets and alternatively flirting and arguing with Marlowe. This is a noir detective story, but it seems less concerned with the outcome and much more with the process. A process which sees Marlowe dealing with a string of attractive and often troublesome dames, as well as a few tough guys, most of whom wind up dead throughout the course of the movie. And of course, a large chunk of the running time is occupied by Bogart and Bacall just doing their thing. And let's face it, that's why we're here in the first place. However, there are also other things to love about The Big Sleep. Excellent performances all around, down to the single scene day players. I'd like to make special mention of Dorothy Malone as the bookstore clerk. It's a great scene anyway, but Malone lights up the screen here. She is the very epitome of, who is that girl? Also, Alicia Cook Jr. deserves a mention as the ill-fated little man, Harry Jones. He's only in the movie for a very short time, but you feel for him immediately. Oh, and before I circle back to the legendary couple, I have to say something about Martha Vickers. Carmen Sternwood is the catalyst for the story, and she is a straight-up train wreck. Vickers completely nails it too. She sachets into her first scene all flirty and coquettish, and later she's very convincingly drugged up and delirious. It matters quite a bit that Carmen is convincing, and Martha Vickers doesn't disappoint. Now, back to Bogey and Bacall. What can I say that I didn't say about these two legendary stars in To Have and Have Not? Do they kick it up a notch in The Big Sleep? No, not really. But honestly, how is that even possible anyway? And it doesn't even matter because every one of their scenes together is pure gold. And to Howard Hawks' credit, he really lets them play.
So you're a private detective? I didn't know they existed except in books, or else they were greasy little men snooping around hotel corridors. Oh, you're a mess, aren't you?
I'm not very tall either. Next time I'll come on stilts, wear a white tie, and carry a tennis racket.
I doubt if even that would help.
What I will say is that The Big Sleep has a screenplay that lives up to their legend. Written by William Faulkner, Lee Brackett, and Charles Furthman, they had to make Chandler's novel conform to Hays Code restrictions, particularly regarding sexuality. And they did it by writing some of the cleverest, wittiest, subtly suggestive dialogue ever put to film. And by the way, by the twinkle in the eyes of some of the cast, I think they truly love delivering a lot of those lines. And I always enjoy hearing them. So The Big Sleep is my choice for Best Screenplay and Best Picture of 1946. Join me next time on A Century of Cinema when I will be discussing my favourite films of 1947. Now, go watch a movie.